Well, Premier Ford put some blame for the horrific conditions.
Every time people ask me that question, you know, I understand they were scared. This is in April. This was the peak of COVID, and all heck was breaking loose, and they were nervous about their families.
Doug Ford, the Premier of Ontario, put some blame for the horrific conditions in some long-term care homes onto union members today. The Premier claimed unionized government inspectors refused to go into these care facilities back in April to carry out on-site inspections during the pandemic. And he says they need to be accountable. He also called out the union head, Smokey Thomas, who quickly afterwards released an April 22nd letter that the union wrote to the Premier. In the letter, it said there are only 164 inspectors for 626 long-term care homes, and that the inspectors were not properly trained or properly protected to function during the pandemic. He also wrote, quote, the inspections would not provide us with any more information than we don't already have, going on to say residents are not receiving the care they need, and that the privately run long-term care centers had no plan for the pandemic. So, did the union fail, or did the government fail? Let's find out. One perspective, Smokey Thomas is the president of that union. Doug Ford was talking about the Ontario Public Service Employees Union. He joins us from Toronto. Smokey Thomas, good to have you back on the program. What was your reaction when you heard Doug Ford say he was no longer going to take bullets for the union workers?
I just about fell off my chair. Not only has he not taken bullets for frontline workers, the inspectors, we've actually helped him dodge many bullets. So what really, I believe the Premier should have read the April the 22nd letter we wrote to him and to the Minister Fullerton. We've never received a response. They did circulate that letter, the government did, I guess, to the media in Toronto here today. So I could give you a quick synopsis of what's happened here. I think there's a whole, well, I don't think, I know there's a whole bunch of bureaucrats in the Ministry of Long-Term Care and the Ministry of Labor that have known for a long, long time that there's problems in long-term care. Back in the Liberal years, they laid off nursing home inspectors. They changed the inspection protocols. They reduced the number of inspections. The Tories, didn't do anything to fix that. So I think there's a whole group of bureaucrats, particularly in the Ministry of Long-Term Care, that stuck their collective foot in the Premier's mouth today. I don't like seeing anybody made to be look bad because it's not true. Our inspectors
But we're just respectfully, people should look bad because thousands of people are dead. And the Premier said yesterday, he goes, until the military blew the whistle, I never thought it was that bad. Even in your April 22nd letter, you said we don't need to do on-site inspections. The union inspectors did not go to those sites. Should they have been there to warn how bad things have been, or because it took the military to expose that?
So, well, Evan, so to back up a bit, so we already knew what was wrong. And I think most people in the healthcare industry, in the labor union movement, we've known for 20 years, over 20 years, what's wrong in our nursing homes, long-term care homes. So it's not like people didn't know. It's not like these bureaucrats didn't know. I would fault the Premier for listening to somebody else without calling us and saying, hey, is this true? Because it's not true. Our inspectors have never refused to go in. What we put in that April the 22nd letter was some cautions. First off, they didn't have protocols, procedures, proper protective equipment for the inspectors. Some of the inspectors would be going into nursing homes that was not their genre, that was not their expertise in nursing homes. It was other parts of the healthcare system or Ministry of Labor. So they needed to have some training. They needed to have and be told what to do when they go in there. It's management that told them to phone the homes, right, to not go in. And at one point, they told them, the bureaucrats said to our members, well, just go up to the home and knock on the door and ask for a mask. Well, back in April, they didn't have masks. And back on April the 14th, the chief medical officer of health said workers in long-term care could only work in one home. Well, management in the Ministry of Long-Term Care and Labor wanted workers to inspect 4 to 5 homes without proper equipment, without proper safety procedures.
But I'm just, a lot of people are saying, everyone's now defending what they did. Why, if the inspecting was so good, if everyone knew, Why did it take the military to come out with these horrific reports and expose this? Why did it take the death of thousands of people, sir?
Well, I guess that's the question that's going to haunt a lot of people for a very long time. Evan, my union has highlighted the concerns in these facilities for years and years. I mean, I'm on the record, lots of fights with Kathleen Wynne, Dalton McGuinty over these homes for years. In that April the 22nd letter, we highlighted all the things that the military, not specific details of individuals, but all the issues in there. And and there have been inspections, Evan. The ministry asked for volunteers. Some of our, over 30 of our members volunteered to go and start doing inspections 3 weeks ago, even though they didn't have all the equipment that they should have. And my chief of staff spent 7 hours on the phone yesterday with the Premier's chief of staff, sorting out how to do it. Because I absolutely, there should be inspections in these homes for 2 weeks. They still don't have the proper equipment, the PPEs, to keep themselves safe, but more importantly, to keep the residents and other people in the home safe. And he's finally realized and said they'll just go into one home, not 4 or 5, and be
okay.
Spreader, right?
Smokey Thomas, just real quick.
Yeah.
Should the Minister of Long-Term Care, Minister Fullerton, should she have known all this? Is it fair to say this was her responsibility? And there were letters back in April that the idea that no one knew how bad it was, is that bogus? Should she have known? Should she have informed the Premier a lot earlier?
Evan, she should have known. And if she didn't, then heads in that ministry should roll. Deputy ministers should be leaving, assistant deputy ministers, directors. They should have known. Had she read the letter, had the Premier read the letter, they would have known. They would have known. And
okay, and last thing, did Doug Ford ever tell you directly he had concerns with the union, with the decisions union members were making during the pandemic? In other words, back in April, or is this now a kind of retroactive history? At the time, did he say, no, get in there? Did you ever have a conversation?
No, never did. And so I don't know why he did what he did today, but he didn't look too sharp. And what he says is just not true, Evan. And I stand by that letter, April 22nd. And, you know, Evan, if there's ever an inquiry, I hope I get called as a witness, because I'll tell you something, there's a lot of bureaucrats in both these ministries that need to be held to account, and I damn well will hold them to account.
All right, so I got to leave it there. I appreciate your time today. That is Mr. Smokey Thomas, the head of the union. Sir, always good to have you on the program. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks, Evan. I appreciate your